When I was little, one of my favorite things, other than building Lego castles, was to have elaborate sieges of them. My parents bought me a picture book on siege warfare, and I saw lots of old movies, and I just loved it. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about it here. The gatehouse is awesome. It has two flanking towers that mean when you are attacking the door, arrows and rocks are going to be coming at you from all sides and from above. Flanking towers used to almost never be on Lego castles, well, except for Falcon's castles. So I'm loving to see that they're coming back in a big way on Lego's most recent castles. It's going to be almost impossible to effectively attack the gate because there's this chasm between the ramp and the gate that you need the drawbridge to get over. So you will have real difficulty with the gates. And it's worse than that because the ramp is parallel to the walls. Any battering ram you want to use needs to get past these walls whilst the defenders throw everything they've got at you. And then you've got to turn this abrupt corner before you even face it in the gates in the chasm. So the main gate gets a 10 out of 10. There's no point in trying to assault the castle from there. A quick aside is that I've always considered sideways ramps for variations of my Lego Ideas castle because I love this defensive feature so much, but I couldn't make it work aesthetically. So, hats off to the Lego designers who've worked so hard on making this asymmetric feature still contribute to the way that this castle looks just so crisp and perfect. An alternative way in is the water gate at the back. I love this feature. You can see one on one of my other builds. Having a water gate means that even if they encircle your castle on land, you can still get supplies via boat or have the defenders go fishing. This means that they may be able to hold out indefinitely. Loads of real castles have docks for this reason. Here's an image of Harlech Castle in Wales. Down at the bottom there, you can see this tiny little dock where they're going to be fishing. They're going to be sending out fishing boats. And, this means that you just can't starve them out. Back to the Lego castle, the water gate is defended by a tower, matriculations, arrow slots, and windows that defenders can throw rocks out of. So you're going to have, impossible trouble taking it. Plus, because you might need a boat to get there, and the approach is so narrow, you won't have any siege engine, and you'll be in single file. So it's a really dangerous place to attack. So, is this castle unimpregnable if you can't get through the gates? I'm going to argue that no, it's not. I think the weakest part of this castle is actually its huge walls, and that's a really good thing. In real life, castles, generally their weakest parts is the gate. So what do designers do? They build huge gatehouses with powerful towers and matriculation and the best kinds of crenellations and wordings and whatever have you on top of them so that they can be sure that those gatehouses are going to be strong. Eventually, once you've fortified your gatehouse enough, as these designers have brilliantly done, the eye of the attacker has to turn to the walls. And, this is really where I think that you should attack if you're attacking this castle. These walls are beautiful. When I was building the Ideas castles, I thought a lot about including these kinds of long merlons without matriculations in spots where you wouldn't expect attacks, because lots of my favorite castles in real life have them. Why do they have them? That's because these are a much simpler design and they're less complex to build. So historically, even though they're less useful in a fight, they got built an awful lot. I think they are the place where a smart attacker would begin. Because these walls have no matriculations and few arrow slots, to shoot an arrow at someone beneath you, you'd have to take most of your body out of cover and come up above the merlons. This means that besieging archers may be able to shoot you. There are all of these stories about castles with tiny garrisons holding out against vast odds, and this is, in part, because of the ingenious way that the walls let you counterattack, move around, and stay protected. Mary Banks, as well as 5 soldiers, her maids, and her children, defended Corfe Castle in England against the parliamentarians who had cannons, in part because of the fact that they had these huge, thick stone walls and all of these brilliant defensive features that meant that the defenders could shoot without the attackers having any chance of shooting back at them. The Lego castle, I think, largely doesn't have that along this wall. Something that it does have that's really cool is it has these 2 parallel towers. That means that if you step within this this central here, you're in a lot of danger because you're going to have arrows coming at you, rocks coming at you, muskets, and maybe even cannonballs if we're in a later era from every direction. But the problem here is for the defenders to be able to harm you, they have to put themselves at risk. And in situations like Mary's, where the castle is just going to be defended by a tiny number of people, and many of them might not even be soldiers, these people are going to be in a very hard situation if every time the attackers need to be fought off, the defenders have to risk their lives. What are you going to do if the defenders are undermining here or putting up ladders? You desperately need these matriculations and arrow slots. But okay, there's actually a better way of attacking these walls than simply climbing them in that square or undermining them. If we look closely, we notice that the defenders haven't taken the time to hew down this rock. And as a result, the attackers can climb up on it. And instead of now climbing this 2 or 3 story wall, it looks like, you have to climb about 6 foot and then you're on the battlement. And there's actually a handy tree already there to help you climb that last 6 foot. So trees are cool. They look really nice. I remember as a child being really excited when Lego first started introducing brown trees, and I got a castle that had a sort of brown tree growing up the side of it. But I don't include them in any real way on the Lego castle sets that I build, because in real life, defenders know that if you let a tree grow next to your wall, it's going to give your foes easy access. Of course, they add visual texture, so you can see why other designers are going to put them in. But when I build this, I'm no doubt going to replace these pieces or have fun with this as a way that Robin Hood is going to come into the castle at night. The first time I saw the preview of this castle, there was something that I'd always wanted on a Lego castle that I think actually helps defend this tiny stretch of wall from tree climbing attackers, even though they're still its greatest vulnerability. It's the fact that the castle has an inner wall. Lego castles in general only have outer walls, but in real life, castles like Corfe Castle, which Mary wonderfully defended, they have multiple walls. This is brilliant because, the attacker, they fight incredibly hard to get through the outer wall. Finally, they've got onto the outer wall. But now they've left behind their siege towers, they've left behind their ladders, they've left behind their cannons, and that maybe they don't even know any of the layout of the castle that they've now come into, so they're disorientated, even though that they've got victory, and now suddenly in front of them is a secondary, even more massive, even more formidable, even more imposing wall. This castle has exactly that. So, if you're Robin Hood, you climb up this tree, you get over the first wall, and what do you find? You find a bigger, taller, scarier wall. This is brilliant. Of course, on the Lego model, it looks like there's a couple of doors. We'll have to see later on how they're defended when the model is properly released. But I think this is your best chance to conquer this castle. I really like that they've included this sort of hoarding building that looks a bit like the guarded that's again lending defense to this courtyard. But in the balance of things, I still think that this is the best place for the attacker to attack. Does this make the castle less fun? I'm going to argue that it really doesn't. I think part of what's fun about Lego castles is that they take you on this imaginative journey. In real life, people built castles, then the people that built those castles or attackers, they spotted weaknesses in them and they added to them, and then they added to them again, and then they added to them again. So Corfe Castle wasn't built in a year. This is over 500 years of development, people adding extra towers, people adding extra walls, because they're spotting these weaknesses and they're thinking, what if the attacker does X? How are we going to defend against that? So I wouldn't see these things as a flaw in the model, but instead actually a doorway to that kind of thinking, to how you as a child could play with it, how you imagining that you're Robin Hood scaling those walls, or how as a collector you could display this, how you could array the figures. Or if you're someone like me to whom the main pleasure of Lego is this ongoing building process. This is a way to start thinking about how you can add to this castle, how you can take this model on this 500-year or 1,000-year long journey of extension and redoubling of defenses. So I think that's just wonderful. Although this model seems to come at a hefty price tag, this is something that I'm really looking forward to. And it is probably in recent years the Lego set that I've been most excited about. Hopefully see you all soon. Bye.